Hi, I'm Hannah Wallace and welcome to FinextraTV at Sibos. Kindly calling into our virtual studio now is Antoine Cuypers, Director EMEA at Intix. So Antoine, thank you very much for joining us today. It's good to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Anna. Pleasure.
It's really good to have you on. So yes, over the course of Sibos, we're going to be looking a lot at some of the key payments innovations we're seeing across the industry. So it'd be great if you could set the scene and highlight some of these innovations for us. And also tell us what some of the things you're working on specifically at Intix. Let's start there.
Okay. So what I think is a key market development at what we witness within Intix, in the market, it's all related to increased transparency in cross-border payments. Think initiatives like Swift GPI. So because both financial institutions and their corporate customers, they want to experience faster and more transparent cross-border payments, which can be a challenge with some processing frictions and failures. These failures or frictions, they typically happen within the banks, not necessarily between the banks. So it becomes increasingly important for banking institutions to monitor their own value streams internally on a transactional level, and to be able to react promptly when failures occur on a single or on a set of correspondence. Because obviously, using these transparency initiatives like Swift GPI, all your correspondents can likewise see what's happening. And that's obviously not a good thing for your reputation. And nobody likes to have their key customers calling them and asking like, where's my payment? What's going on? What's wrong? So these are, I think, are today key drivers why banks are working with Intix, why they want to do, tracking, tracing, visualizing real-time transaction flows, what we would call business activity monitoring.
All right, that's interesting. And following on quite nicely then, talking about the main drivers, what are the main issues then that banks face with those outdated systems and technology that we see?
Obviously, the response here is not going to come as a surprise for those in the industry. Historically, most of these banking institutions have built and are operating rather complex IT infrastructures. There's a myriad of IT systems. They're all reasonably specialized. You should think about solutions around financial crime, the core banking system, the CRMs, the treasury management, etc., etc. And all of these systems use various types of data storage, different middleware technologies, and so on. So that brings a major challenge for financial institutions to what I would call a single version of the truth. And a single version of the truth is rather critical in order for them to consume the correct data to serve, different business functions for people like compliance, correspondent banking relationships, the front office people.
All right, okay, that's interesting then. So what's your advice then? What do you think banks need to do in order to respond to those challenges just highlighted? And where does Intix come in? How do you help?
I don't think banking don't necessarily needs to change their entire systems or their whole infrastructure landscape. That's too big of a challenge. So what we do typically within Intix, we deploy within the banks a dedicated transaction data management technology sitting next to the existing systems, and we connect to these in what we call a thin, lightweight, and non-intrusive manner. So all of these Intix customers today, they're running the same software solution, but it's actually highly configurable to adapt to all of their specific requirements, because each bank internally operates in quite a different manner. So generally speaking, what we would recommend to the banking industry is start deploying business activity monitoring, tracking and tracing, focus on a specific use case at a time. Don't go for the big bang. Let's do this gradually, one use case at a time. And obviously, from an Intix perspective, in the meantime, we can bring a lot of lessons learned and best practices to the table.
All right. So finally, I know that you wanted to touch on the benefits to transaction data and access to transaction data. So tell us, which of the key teams within banks benefit most from improved access to transaction data? What about that?
Yeah. Obviously, data is one of the key assets for the banking industry. So we have actually a number of teams or a variety of teams within each different bank which we are servicing through our solutions. Think about customer service, front office, the typical question, where is my payment? Can I get a copy? Things like that. Payment operations people, compliance financial crime units, the people from correspondent banking, relationship management, business development, and obviously also IT. And all of these things, they require to some detail access to transaction details, or more or less a real-time manner. If it's now in processing or already stored in some long-term archive. And this is where our Intix X-Trail solution comes into play. And then obviously lots of the payment operations people are very keen on benefiting from, end-to-end business activity monitoring. And at transaction level, alerting if something goes wrong, you want to know in advance. So this is where Intix X-Trace comes into play. It gives them, a peace of mind. It's a major risk management solution in case there is an operational disruption, and they do happen. So not to go too much into detail on this one, but I would suggest have a look at our experience page. We've got a few of our larger institutions on camera speaking about how they use us.
Brilliant. Well, I look forward to seeing that and also catching up further down the line and reflecting on this. But Antoine, thank you so much for calling in and sharing your insights today. You've really painted the picture for us. And have a great Sibos. Thank you very much.
Thanks for inviting me, Hannah. Thank you.